Thank you, Sandhya. Radhe Radhe, good morning, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Vijayji, for a wonderful session. Vayam Gachamaha, Nava Varsha, Shubhkamana, and I am Aham Wannabe Shikshakaha.
Very nice.
Okay. Thank you so much. Radhe Radhe, good morning, good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's edition of Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita. Today we will talk about what Arjun is going to pose a dilemma to Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna has been talking about, he introduced Sankhya Yoga, told him his true introduction, who you truly are. And then he goes on to tell him that action is needed. You cannot run away from action. And then Lord Krishna introduces the concept of knowledge, the Buddhi Yoga. And Arjun is going to ask Krishna that, you are confusing me. If the knowledge is superior or action is superior. But at the same time, he's not saying that give me a break. Okay, you are confusing me. He's saying, I know you are trying to explain me, but I am bewildered. So please help me understand this. And that is something we're going to talk about today. So welcome and Happy New Year 2023. Hope you had a wonderful start to your new year, and you have not yet folded the resolution paper and put it back in your closet and still looking at it. We'll get started with our today's session on a good footing. Earth has completed another rotation around the Earth, which is pretty significant milestone, right? Takes us hopefully a step closer to God this year as well. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started by invoking the blessings of God and Guru. Give me a sec and then we will get started. Able to see my screen? Okay, yes. Wonderful. All right. Okay. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. All right, Radhe Radhe, good morning, good evening again to all of you. So let's get started. We are in chapter 3 recap now. We finished chapter 2 recap, and it's a good opportunity to connect the dot where we are. How far this journey has come through and how Lord Krishna and the dialogue is unfolding. Sometimes when we go from shloka to shloka, we lose track of what was the context, why we are discussing what we are discussing, right? So it always helps to build that mental map where we are and why that particular discussion is taking place. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna has not wasted any words at all, even though it may sound like repetition, but God has not wasted any words. It's okay. So we need to understand why he's repeating something or saying it from a different angle. And as we progress in this journey, we'll be able to appreciate each and every shloka. All right, he said that, but now he had to say this, and now he's saying it from this angle, kind of thing. So let's get started. Today I have picked up the opening shlokas from chapter 3, and you're welcome to follow along. That's what we'll get started with. And this one is Arjun Vacha, where Arjun is asking this question. So I'll recite it, 2 shlokas, and then you're welcome to follow along. Arjun Vacha Jayasi Chet Karmanaste Mata Buddhir Janardana Tat Kim Karmani Ghore Mam Niyojayasi Keshava Vyami Shreneva Vakyena बुद्धिं मोहयसीव मे तदेकं वद निश्चित्य येन श्रेयोऽहमाप्नुयाम्. All right, a lot of shlokas today. We'll pick up a few hands and then we'll get started.
Okay, yes. Radhe Radhe Samji.
Radhe Samji.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe.
Arjuna uvacha jyayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhirjanardana tatkim karmani ghore mam niyojayasi keshava व्यामिश्रेणेव वाक्येन बुद्धिं मोहयसीव मे तदेकं वद निश्चित्य येन श्रेयो अहम् आप्नुयाम्.
Very nice, Samji. Radhe Radhe. And
Ramesh,
congratulations for reclaiming the top spot of recitation again today, like you always do. Yes, Ramesh. Radhe Radhe.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. Happy New Year. Arjuna
Happy New Year.
uvacha jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhirjanardana tatkim karmani ghore mam niyojayasi keshava vyamishreneva vakyena buddhim mohayasiva me tadekam vada nishchitya yena shreyo hamapnuyat.
Very nice, Ramesh. Radhe Radhe. Thank you. Okay, we'll pick up maybe 5 more hands. Preference given to ones who have turned on their videos.
Surya ji, Surya Prakash ji, Radhe Radhe. Please go ahead.
Radhe Surya Prakash.
Radhe Radhe. Good morning.
Radhe.
Good morning. Jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhirjanardana tatkim karmani gore mam niyojayasi keshavaha vyamishreneva vakyena buddhim mohayasiva me tadekam vada nityitya yena shreyo hamapnuyat yam.
Hapniyam. Very nice. Thank you, Surya ji. Radhe Radhe.
Rahul ji, Radhe Radhe. Please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Arjuna uvacha jyayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhirjanardana tatkim karmani ghore mam niyojayasi keshavaha vyamishreneva vakyena buddhim mohayasiva me tadekam vad nishchityen shreyo hamapnuyam. Radhe Radhe.
Very nice. Thank you, Rahul. Radhe Radhe. Okay, quick. Many hands.
Aparna ji, Radhe Radhe. Please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe, Aparna ji.
Radhe Radhe. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
Arjuna uvacha jyayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhirjanardana tatkim karmani ghore mam niyojayasi keshava vyamishreneva vakyena buddhim mohayasiva me tadekam vada nishchitya yena shreyo hamapnuyam.
Very nice. Thank you, Aparna ji. Radhe Radhe. All right.
Riya ji, Radhe
Let's
Radhe.
take the remaining hands real quick. Yeah. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Arjuna uvacha jyayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhirjanardana tatkim karmani ghore mam niyojayasi keshava vyamishvakyena buddhim mohayasiva me tadekam vada nishchitya yena shreyo hamapnuyam.
Very nice. Thank you. Oh, is it done right? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, let's freeze it to the last 5 now and then we'll get started real quick.
Yes, Dinesh ji, Radhe Radhe. Please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Arjun uvacha ज्यायसि चेत् कर्मणस्ते मता बुद्धिर्जनार्दन तत्किं कर्मणि घोरे मां नियोजयसि केशव व्यामिश्रेणेव वाक्येन बुद्धिं मोहयसीव मे तदेकं वद निश्चित्य येन श्रेयोऽहमाप्नुयाम्. राधे राधे.
Very nice. Radhe Radhe. Thank you, Dinesh. Last four.
Radhe Radhe Payalji, please go ahead.
राधे राधे अर्जुन उवाच ज्यायसि चेत् कर्मणस्ते मता बुद्धिर्जनार्दन तत्किं कर्मणि घोरे मां नियोजयसि केशव व्यामिश्रेणेव वाक्येन बुद्धिं मोहयसीव मे तदेकं वद निश्चित्य येन श्रेयोऽहमाप्नुयाम्. राधे राधे.
Wonderful. Very nice, Payalji. Radhe Radhe. Last three hands, real quick.
Pragi ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Pragi ji.
Radhe Radhe. Am I audible?
Radhe Radhe.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you, Pragi ji.
Arjun
We can-
Uvacha. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
We can hear you, Pragi ji. Please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Okay.
Radhe.
Arjun Uvacha. ज्यायसि चेत् कर्मण्यस्ते मता बुद्धिर्जनार्दन तत्किं कर्मणि घोरे मां नियोजयसि केशव व्यामिश्रेणेव वाक्येन बुद्धिं मोहयसीव मे तदेकं वद निश्चित्य येन श्रेयोऽहमाप्नुयाम्.
Very nice, Pragi ji.
Thank you.
Radhe Radhe. Okay. Radhe Radhe. Last two hands, real quick.
Yes, Uday Kumar ji, Radhe Radhe, please go
Yeah,
ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Wish you a
Radhe Radhe,
very
Uday
happy
ji.
new year. Arjuna uvacha jayasi chet karmanasते mata buddhir janardana tat kim karmani ghore mam niyojayasi keshava vyamisheneva vakyena buddhim mohoyasiva me tad ekam vada nischitya yena shreyohamapnuyam. Radhe Radhe.
Wonderful, Radhe 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 Uday ji. Thank you. Last but not the least, Ramesh ji, please go ahead.
Yes, Radhe Radhe Sumesh ji, please proceed.
राधे राधे Simply now was the हार्दिक शुभकामना अर्जुन उवाच ज्यायसि चेत् कर्मणस्ते मता बुद्धिर्जनार्दन तत्किं कर्मणि घोरे मां योजयसि केशव व्यामिश्रेणेव वाक्येन बुद्धिं मोहयसीव मे तदेकं वद निश्चित्य येन श्रेयोऽहमाप्नुयाम्. राधे राधे.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Now let's get started. Now in this shloka, Arjun is posing a question to Lord Krishna. And invariably, if you'd see during the course of Bhagavad Gita, whenever he's asking him a question, there's a context in which Arjun is referring to Krishna. And there's a context where Krishna is referring to Arjun as well. They are using different names. And Madhusudan or Keshav invariably is used whenever there is a doubt that crops up in Arjun's mind. And doubt, the seed of doubt is like a demon. If you keep fueling it, if you don't get that resolved quickly, then it can become a big demon and it can actually derail your journey as well. So it's important to get your doubts addressed in a timely manner and move forward. And even if your doubts don't get resolved, you still keep moving forward, right? Because this is a journey from understanding to understanding and not from doubt to doubt. In due course of time, doubts will get resolved. It's just a matter of time, but we have to have the faith and continue proceeding. Now, Arjun has the benefit of Lord Krishna to slay all of his doubts. And let's see what he's asking and how Lord Krishna is going to tell, how to resolve that doubt. Now, Arjun is saying, "Oh Janardhan, Janardhan, by the way, it means one who takes care of the people. If you consider knowledge superior to action, why do you ask me to wage this terrible war? My intellect is bewildered by your ambiguous advice. Please tell me decisively the one path by which I may attain the highest good. Now, you may wonder why Arjun is saying it is an ambiguous desire, advice that Lord Krishna has given him. Did we figure out anywhere it's ambiguous, right? We are not able to follow. Arjun is able to really get into the skin of what Lord Krishna is saying. And I will replay, what happened, why Arjun is asking this question. Okay. Because he's a very intelligent student. He's able to get into the skin of what Lord Krishna is telling him, and then he's picking it up very quickly. And at the same time, see, he was the one who was able to understand Bhagavad Gita in one narration. Not only understand, but implement it as well. Right? Sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmar yuddhasya. That was the instruction. He was able to execute that. For us, ordinary mortals, if we continue to read Bhagavad Gita, even that may not be sufficient. Right? We will keep on gaining something new. But let's see the events or the shlokas that have transpired so far, which has led Arjun to this state where he's posing this question to Lord Krishna. Okay. So this is what we are going to talk about today. What happened? Yeah, so knowledge or action, which one is superior, is the question that we are going to tackle today. All right, so let's get started. Chapter 1. Quick recap, just so that you don't lose the big picture, what's going on here. It starts with the setting where Arjun's grief and lamentation arose. We know the situation that he's in, creating a reason for Krishna to give spiritual instructions. If Arjun had not posed a doubt, then this whole message would not have unfolded, right? It all started with a doubt, and very genuine doubt. Am I supposed to wage this terrible war against my own relatives? Should I get their blood on my hands? And he started feeling weak in his knees, and his bow started slipping out of his hands, and that sets the context for Bhagavad Gita. That is where it is called Arjun Vishad Yoga, the first chapter, where it is all about Arjun relaying his weakness or asking Krishna for help, that I am not able to understand what is right and what is wrong for me in this kind of a situation. Please help me. 2.7 is where he says, Shishyasteham Twam. Basically, he says, accept me as your disciple. And that's when Lord Krishna starts telling him what he should be doing and how he should be looking at the situation objectively, which is called Sankhya Yoga. So let's move on. This is the doubt. Then God in chapter 2, he says, know yourself first. Okay, first understand who you are, your immortal self. And then he reminded him his duty as a warrior, that it would result in glory and celestial abodes. That's how our God starts actually. And after prodding him to action, his occupational work as a Kshatriya, then he revealed a superior principle. That is fine, he said. Some people get stuck at this step only. My duty, action as a Kshatriya, as a Brahman, as a this, as a that. And that's where their Bhagavad Gita stops. Beyond that, they're not able to understand. But let's look at it systematically, one step at a time. And then he reveals him a superior knowledge of Karam Yoga and asks him to perform his action but detach himself to his works. Okay, this is where chapter 2 and touches upon it, and chapter 3 is going to get devoted in. So now let's look at what happens in Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya Yoga is chapter 2, which means Sankhya, right? It's a Hindi word. Hindi also it is used. It's a complete analytical knowledge. It comes from San, which means complete, and Kya means to know, complete knowledge. And what does that entail? It starts with understanding your true self. Our true self is not our name, designations, nationality, religion, caste, creed, family lineage, nothing of that sort. It starts with get to know thyself, and you are a soul, and it actually goes on to explain everything about the soul. Location of the soul is in our heart. Okay, it is located in the heart. That doesn't mean that if you transplant your heart, the soul will be transferred. Okay, it is located there. Then it says that consciousness, the fact that you feel lively, your body feel lively is because of the presence of that conscious. The symptom of that soul, and the symptom of soul is consciousness. Wherever soul is present, consciousness will pervade the entire body. Now you will say, if soul is located only in heart, how can he pervade the entire body? It's just like in a garden, flower is there at one place, but its fragrance can spread throughout. Chandan you put on your forehead, but it can cool down your entire body. Similarly, consciousness is a symptom of soul which can pervade our entire body, and it is located in the region of our heart. And then consciousness and soul are not the same. It is a symptom of the soul. So he goes on to explain that you are this immortal entity called soul and not this body, the perishable body that you look at. That is just gross. It's just like changing clothes. Even in this life, you keep on changing clothes. How do you change clothes? Because if you look at your picture in as a child, how you look today is entirely different from that. And when you grow old, it will be entirely different. So you are changing clothes even in this life. And death is another way of changing clothes and transcending into another gross body. That's what Lord Krishna explains in Sankhya Yoga. And it is immortal. Soul is immortal. But if it is changing, that doesn't mean your identity has changed, right? You intuitively know that's me. So if somebody commits a murder and after 10 years he's imprisoned or given a capital punishment, and that person comes back and say, you know what, I have read in Bhagavad Gita that soul changes body. So the body that committed the crime was different, and my body is different, because by even biology, it tells you every 7 years all of your cells change. Why you're meting out punishment to me? Judge will say, no, it was you. What is that you? You is the soul. Even though the body has changed, you have remained the same. And that I is constant. You know that intuitively, that's me. Right? That was you. So that's how it goes. Now, Swadharma. Then Krishna goes on to give him a higher principle. What is dharma? This word confuses a lot of people. Dharma. So hopefully, after revising this again today, it will be very clear to us what is our dharma. So Swadharma means something which is our duty, first and foremost duty. It falls into two categories. Okay. One is at the level of paradharma, which is called spiritual duties. Other one is which is considering oneself to be the soul. So the prescribed duty is to love and serve God with devotion, period, nothing else. If you consider yourself as a soul, which is who you truly are, then the first, foremost, last, and the only duty is to serve and love God. There is no other duty for the soul. Very simply, very simplified, nothing else. However, if you are still not in that consciousness, then these duties apply to you, which is called aparadharma, material duties, mundane duties, or duties at the level of the bodily level. What are those? These are the duties basically which humankind does. They don't have a spiritual perspective, and then they consider themselves as a body, and that is why all the duties that are there as per the varnashram dharam, you do this, as a bachelor you do that, and then brahmacharya, and then grihast and vanprasth, and all those stages come. And as a mother, as a father, the pitri rin, the three rins, and devik rin, this rin, that rin, all these are called material or aparadharma, because you are not yet situated in the knowledge that you are a soul. And whenever you get that realization, or you are situated in that understanding, or you are discharging that duty, then you are absolved of all the lower duties. So between para and aparadharma, paradharma is higher, because that is truly catering to your real self. Aparadharma is something you continue to do, because for as long as you don't understand your true identity, you still have to do something, so that you are not doing sinful deeds and degrading yourself. So that is where aparadharma comes. It's kind of a hygiene factor, so to say. But that doesn't take precedence. In fact, scripturally speaking, whenever there is a conflict between paradharma and aparadharma, paradharma takes precedence. Okay. Now you may have your material mother and father, and then you have your spiritual mother and father. Now we don't have an understanding we have a spiritual mother and father, right? We have only heard in scriptures, Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva. But if you have that understanding, if you have developed that understanding, and there is a conflict of interest between the two, the spiritual takes precedence. It's very simple principle. When Buddha left his family, a lot of people would come back and say, What kind of an irresponsible person was he, who left his wife, kid in the middle of the night? How could he leave his material duties? That is where we have to understand. He could afford to do that because he started discharging paradharma. He was actually situated in that, and he enlightened so many people around it, right? And it is said that in conflict between apara and paradharma takes precedence, because now you are truly catering to your true self, which is soul. Body dharma is fine, but I mean, we have to do that for as long as we are not situated in knowledge. But then when you start aligning to the higher principles, the bodily dharmas, they take a back seat. They are no longer applicable to you. Right? So for the sake of a, what do you call that? For the sake of a family, an individual can be sacrificed. For the sake of a city, a family can be sacrificed. For the sake of a country, a city can be sacrificed. And for the sake of the planet, a country can be sacrificed. And for the sake of discharging your para duties, all apara duties can be sacrificed. Right? But you have to be there. You cannot do that unless you are ready. You cannot do a falgu viragya from the world. Let's say I'm going to discharge my para duties now. It can only be done under the expert guidance of a guru who knows that you have truly developed the required viragya from the world, not an artificial viragya where you find the world very troublesome. Oh my God, who's going to deal with responsibilities, friends, families, spouses, and all that stuff, and then turn your back towards your responsibility. That's not the way. But when you are ready for that, which happens in a lot of people's life, the call of God, it is called, is the strongest one. But God doesn't care to call up every second person, right? But when he calls, that call is the strongest. It's like fish out of water, then you only care for discharging your duty towards the God. But he'll not call you until you are ready. So let's move on. This is talking quickly about dharma. Now, what is Arjun told by Krishna? Krishna told Arjun that go ahead as a Kshatriya, fight the war, because when you fight, you will get laddu. You see this laddu? Very nice laddu. Why laddu? In one hand, if he is victorious, a kingdom on earth awaits him. That is one laddu. Laddu is laughing, okay. And the second one is, on the other hand also, there's a laddu. What is the second one? He says, if you are forced to lay down your life in discharge of your duty, you will go to the celestial abodes. So, person who lays down his life for the sake of his duty, God gives him a better life. Celestial virgati, right? They call it virgati. When you get virgati, you get celestial abodes. And that's what Lord Krishna tell him, that, okay, first he explained him, first of all, your compassion towards your relatives is misplaced, because we are soul. They are not going to die. They are anyway going to transcend from life to life, because soul is immortal. But does that mean you go and kill people and give this argument? No. Then he gives another argument. He says you have to perform it as a matter of your duty, because you are a Kshatriya. And as a Kshatriya, there are two possibilities in this war. Either you will win or you will die. In both cases, there is something good waiting for you. Either you'll have the kingdom, or you'll get virgati and you'll go to celestial abodes. That's what Lord Krishna says. And he's telling him to fight the war in this case. Now, this is the first message to begin with to Arjun. It doesn't stop here. Okay, a lot of people stop their Bhagavad Gita at this level only. It's just the starting. Okay, what does Lord Krishna tell him now? Let's look at that. Then Lord Krishna goes on to tell him that Buddhi Yoga, he introduces the concept of Buddhi Yoga. We perform an act. How do we perform an act? He explains the science behind it. Whenever we do something in our day-to-day lives, whether at job or at home or dealing with people around, that act falls into two categories. That's what Lord Krishna is going to explain, which is Buddhi Yoga. He says there's an intellect aspect of your mind which makes the decisions or the desires or the attachments. So basically, he says intellect, and when your intellect is the decision-making capacity, he's saying basically introducing the concept of our buddhi. Buddhi is the higher faculty within our mind. Our scriptures say our mind has four components to it. Man, which thinks, desires, buddhi, chit, and ahankar. These four things are there. Intellect is the governor of our mind. Buddhi means whatever is sanctioned by your buddhi, your mind will do that. So if your buddhi says this is important, your mind will do that. If your buddhi says this is not important, your mind will not do that. People who have a hard time focusing, when their buddhi decides it's exam time, for 3 hours, they will be able to focus their mind. A lot of people who are naughty, but you put them in front of teacher, their buddhi has decided, I have to behave properly. They will, because that is the power of buddhi. And Lord Krishna is telling Arjun to harness the power of buddhi in buddhi yoga. So he tells that your buddhi, like if your buddhi has decided money is the source of happiness, mind will start seeking money. Only game mind likes to play is how do I put another zero in front of my bank balance. Okay, that is the power of our intellect. Or if your body, buddhi has thought that fame is the source of most important thing or prestige is the most important thing, then the whole life or majority of your life is spent in vanity, thinking about how do I get famous or infamous, right? Where people get to know me. So it's the knowledge that is sanctioned by our intellect which matters a lot. And Lord Krishna is telling that in Buddhi Yoga, in order, basically, this intellect, harness the power of this intellect, because your mind will not do anything or desire anything until your intellect has sanctioned or approved it, says, yes, go for it. And then only your mind will go for that. Okay, now how does it matter or map to the Bhagavad Gita concept? Let's look at it. That's where he introduces the concept of Karma Yoga, where he said, you do your duty, but do not concern yourself with the results. Fruit of your actions are not for your enjoyment, and give up the work, pride of doership, and do not be attached to inaction. This is Buddhi Yoga, where your intellect should know that you are not the doer, and being a part of God, everything has to be offered to him. Now, let me give you a quick recap of that as well. This is how he comes to this point. When he explains him the Sankhya Yoga, he tells him that I'm now going to, Sankhya Yoga was telling him that he's actually a soul and not a body. And then Buddhi Yoga, the yoga of the intellect that we are talking about, he's going to explain him the nature of the soul, okay, and how the karma has to be performed. And he's saying, when you do work in this consciousness, work for the pleasure of God, you will be freed from the bondage of karma. It's only when we do something for our own sake, for our own enjoyment, we incur binding karma. Binding karma could be positive or negative. But when you start performing karma with a consciousness that you are not the doer, it's only because of God's energy that act has been enabled, and I have to do it for the pleasure of God. That's when it is not only purifying but also non-binding. Okay, so this is the science of yoga that God actually has introduced, and says, if you make even a little bit of progress on this path, it will save you from a great danger. And the danger that he's talking about is the danger of binding karma, which makes us repeat in this world. Okay. Now, in 2.41, he says that in order for you to do that, you need to have a single pointed mind, not multi-branched mind, where you have opened up too many channels in your mind. Okay, let me try this, let me try that. First of all, yes, it's okay. When we are introduced to the path of spirituality, we try to listen or try to align to too many things, because it's a discovery process to begin with. But once we start understanding it, it's important we have a razor sharp focus. Then we don't keep on experimenting for the rest of our life. Because if we have a multi-branched mind, then we will dig up multiple wells, and none of the well is going to lead us to water. So he introduces the concept of Vyavsayatmika Buddhi, which is resolute intellect. Resolute intellect means this is it, and this is what I want to do. It's important to reach that stage sooner in our spiritual journey than later, because till that point, we are simply doing intellectual entertainment. Right? It could be experimentation to begin with, but then beyond a point, it becomes an entertainment, because we like concepts, we hear concepts, but we don't have a firm resolve to do something about it. So he brings in that concept. And then he says, when your intellect ceases to be allured by the fruitive section of the Vedas, remains steadfast in divine consciousness, you will attain the state of perfect yoga. And then he introduced the concept that stop being allured by the fruitive sections of the Vedas, where you do this, you get this result, you do this, you get this fruit, you do this, you do that. We have to shed that mindset of approaching God for the sake of some kind of a fruitive result. Right? We go with our secret wish list to God, bucket list. When we go to a temple, God, this happens, this happens. That you have to refrain from that. You are not doing worship at that point. When we are seeking world care of God, it is not truly worship. It's a transaction that we are dealing with, and it is going to keep you binded to this world itself. Okay. All right. So, and then 2.54 is then he says, Keshav, tell me the disposition of one who is situated in divine consciousness. How does an enlightened person talk? How does he sit? How does he walk? He spoke about that as well. The sthit pragya, and that's where he starts explaining that that person is equanimous, that pendulum principle we spoke about, and a lot of other attributes as well, that he takes misery and distress alike, the heat and cold alike, the success and failure alike. They don't get swayed like this on either side of the pendulum. Lord Krishna goes on to see, it's like when we do that, God is not conjuice, right? He'll make us full of juice, basically. That is how it goes, because he has a lot to offer to us, and he'll give you the true bliss when we forfeit that temporary bliss of riding the waves on either side. He will truly fill you of juice, in the sense that you will feel good, happy, peaceful, thrilled, awesome, right? Now, devotees, every day is Diwali for them. If people who are truly walking on this path and try to align to these principles, for people in the world, they may seem stupid. But if you ask them, they're having the time of their life. Because God, like I said, is not conjuice. What he gives you when you start aligning to spiritual principle is something too good to be true, only to be experienced. But that can happen only when you start aligning to this path with firm resolve, with a resolute intellect. Okay, now, if you look at it, Arjuna is saying that by making contradictory statements, you are bewildering my intellect. Because God has introduced both the knowledge, Sankhya Yoga aspect of it. He's telling, on one hand, he's telling him that you are a Kshatriya, swing into action. And then in parallel, he's also telling him to give up the fruits of his actions. And he's saying that you need to understand, cultivate Buddhi Yoga. So he's saying, just make me understand, how do I resolve this thing, action and knowledge? How can they go hand in hand? And what do you mean, basically? Is knowledge greater than action? Now, Lord Krishna is saying that action should not, action should not be given up. He's not saying give up action. He's saying attachment to the fruits of action should be given up. When you're performing action, perform it in the right consciousness. That's all he's referring to here, and which Arjun is getting clarified. Now he's saying, come do action, but when you start getting attached to the fruit of the action, I'm doing this, so this should happen. That is where the problem happens. Okay. And furthermore, just to illustrate the same point, when we do that with the desire to enjoy the fruits of our work, it actually becomes binding. We are tying ourselves up in knots, which becomes a binding karma. Okay. Simple karma is binding. It could be binding positively, or it could be binding negatively. Positively means if you have performed that action in the mode of sattva guna, in the mode of goodness, then it will give us a better result, but still in the material realm, which is still binding. And if you have done it in a bad consciousness, with some kind of a bitterness, resentment, or evil in your heart, then that karma will take us to the nether regions, the lower regions, which is still binding. So whenever a karma is performed, it is with a desire to enjoy the fruit. Enjoy the fruit means you are attached to the result. You want to enjoy the fruit in some way, then it becomes binding. And when you don't do that, this becomes like this. You have actually broken a shackle. And this is called Buddhi Yoga, yoga of the intellect, where you are working. Action you will continue to do in this world. Arjun, before the message of Bhagavad Gita, he was supposed to fight a war. Now also he fight a war. But the thing that changed was the consciousness, why he was fighting the war, the reason changed. And and what he was trying to get out of the war, that changed, and that made the whole difference. So that is essentially what Bhagavad Gita's message is. First of all, understand who you are. You are a soul. What is your higher dharma? That big picture has to be there at the back of the mind. So don't justify yourself by saying, who will take care of this world if everybody will take a sannyas? Okay, make it Brahmaji's problem. Okay, it'll be a good problem to have for Brahmaji. Let's not worry about it, because love for God is the ultimate thing. Now, does it mean you take sannyas? Of course not. Krishna is saying, continue doing what you are doing. All I'm asking you to do is the science of work I'm introducing. You continue to do what you are doing. Whichever station of life, you are a teacher, you may a doctor, you're a project manager, whoever you are, right? Then continue performing that in accordance with your gunas, right? Or your occupation at that point in time. Like Arjun's occupation was that being of a Kshatriya, but change the motive behind the action that you are performing. You are not doing it for your own sake, for your own enjoyment, or for your sense gratification. You are doing it to the best of your ability for the pleasure of God, keeping that big picture in mind. That is essentially what Lord Krishna is telling here. And that will not only free us up, but also purify us as well. And that is what I'm saying, Bhagavad Gita. The more you read through it, understand it, the more you will start drawing it, because our vessel, it's not because the message is different. Message is the same. It is a sentient or a message with Chitta Shakti of God. Your vessel, as it starts expanding, you will start drawing more and more out of it. So it's like approaching an ocean. You first when we start, we approach with a small glass. And now as the size of your glass starts expanding, the amount that you can withdraw from that ocean will also start expanding. Is there a limit to that? Of course not, because God's Chitta Shakti is infinite. Even Maya is infinite. So how can Chitta Shakti be finite? And that Chitta Shakti will make sure every time you come, something new will come out of it, something new. You can never say, Vini, Vidi, Viki, right? They say, been there, done it, seen it, and done it. It can never happen with Bhagavad Gita. You read the same shloka million times, there will be a million plus one learning out of it. That is how powerful this teaching is. So key thing again, we are a soul. We don't understand. Hum jante hain, mante nahi. It will take us a while to get to this realization that we are a soul. Until then point, the apara dharma is applicable for us. Apara dharma means in this bodily consciousness. In this bodily consciousness, we are all in some station of our life. Right? We might be a student, we might be youth, we might be in grihast, we might be in varnashram state, whichever state we are in. Do your duty to the best of your ability. Okay, but for the pleasure of God. That is all Lord Krishna is saying. Keep that in mind. And when we perform to the best of our ability, it pleases God. Nothing pleases God more than when we exert ourselves and try to realize our potential. It is said that each one of us is endowed with the music. That is God's gift to us. And understanding that music and harnessing it to the full potential is our gift back to the God. So whenever we exert ourselves and do something good with the talents that each one of us is endowed with, it pleases God really well. And if we can tweak our consciousness that every activity has to be carried out for the pleasure of God, that's it. That is essentially what Karma Yoga is. So that brings us to this question, that journal impression, as you see, people say, right, that is to retire from active life. Spiritual life means to retire from active life, and cultivation of spiritual knowledge or self-realization, they should go to some Himalayan cave or to some secluded place. Is this a correct understanding? I'll leave it at that, because that's where Arjun posed his doubt to Krishna as well. And you know what Krishna said? Krishna said, Arjun, you are a Kshatriya. Even if you go to a forest, you will find 4 or 5 people, form a small team and start fighting a war, because you are a Kshatriya. And that is how our predispositions or our gunas are. So if you think about it, is there a free will truly if we are driven by our gunas? It's an important question to know. If we are driven by our gunas, where is the free will part of it? If we are driven by our sanskars, tendencies, There's a lot of people you'll come across, say there's this concept of free will is farce. We don't have a free will. We are driven by our gunas. Our gunas are driving us, our pravrittis, tendencies are driving us, right? So, and God says, yeah, your tendencies, gunas are driving you. That is a fact. But how did you acquire your gunas? Did those gunas drop from somewhere? We only acquired those gunas. So if we could acquire our gunas, past actions become our present gunas or predominant gunas, then our today's action can become our future gunas. So we do have a free will even to transcend our natural predispositions. That is what the concept of, but then you can exert free will only if you have understood the buddhi yoga aspect of it, the intellect, harnessing the power of your intellect and not playing to the tunes of your mind alone. Right? Lord Krishna, the buddhi yoga is about understand you have an ability to discriminate. We don't do that. And if we simply play to the gunas, then we don't have a free will. We have actually, our gunas have driven us in an autopilot mode at that point. Okay. So harnessing our free will is as good as developing our buddhi yoga or power of our intellect by proper knowledge. So today's question, retiring from life, is that what spirituality is all about, or it has a bigger, deeper meaning around it? With that, I'll take a quick pause. I know we had some announcements to make as well before we get into a bit of a discussion on this topic or what we have discussed so far. Okay. Any questions so far, what we have discussed? It was one big monologue from my side, so hopefully we'll have some questions.
We also have the class sharing, participant sharing presentation.
Sure. Yeah, we can do that. Maybe after a bit of a discussion. And then I want to make a quick announcement on, I can share the link. Please enroll for Antakshari on Jan 14th and 15th. We are going to have a trivia quiz and an Antakshari for Jagat Gurutam Divas. That's coming up. So do check it out. If you have the link, let's post that. Please do sign up for that. It's going to be a fascinating event. And you can test your knowledge on Maharajji's bhajans and some of the Tattva Gyan around it as well. So strongly encourage all of you to do that. And we are going to do our celebration of 2 years, I think this Wednesday. I'll confirm the date because we have an SMX coming up as well. I don't know tomorrow or day after, but sometime within this week, I have your names who have enrolled for participating in bhajans. And if you want to share your journey or your experience, you want to talk about it, please write it in the feedback tracker. We'll budget time accordingly around that. I'm looking forward to that session as well. All right, Nileshi, you had a question?
Yes, Radhe Radhe Nilesh, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe Nileshi. Radhe Radhe.
So Nitinji, I get confused with these two words, Buddhi Yoga and Karma Yoga. I think if you go a slides back as well, the science of working without getting attached to the fruits is Karma Yoga. That's where I think he said, but now we also say it's Buddhi Yoga in this slide. Yeah, that's
it's the same. It's the same. The science of work. Yeah, they're the same basically, where you are actually doing work, but the science of work is exactly Buddhi Yoga only, right? It's just like you harness your, basically you are developing your intellect with an understanding that you're not the doer. Okay, it's God's energy which is basically providing for when you are able to perform an act, and so you have to do it for his action. So with that understanding, Buddhi Yoga is arming your intellect with proper knowledge, and Karma Yoga is doing it for the pleasure of God. So both are like mutually reinforcing to each other.
Okay.
Right? Buddhi Yoga is arm your intellect with proper knowledge. Okay, and have a firm resolve that this is it. So all that encompasses Buddhi Yoga, where we are able to exercise discrimination in our head. That discriminatory, harnessing that discriminatory power which differentiates humans from animals is Buddhi Yoga. And then what do you do with that Buddhi? See, that knowledge, cultivation of knowledge is Buddhi Yoga. And performing act is action. That is what Arjun is asking. Tell me, should I focus only on the knowledge aspect of it or the action aspect of it? And God is saying it is reinforcing each other. You develop this knowledge that you have to do it for the pleasure of God, and then you relinquish the fruit of your action. You still perform an action. Nobody is without action. That is what Lord Krishna is going to talk about in subsequent verses. So Buddhi Yoga is actually cultivation of proper knowledge so that you can perform action in true sense. Proper science of work, basically, to cultivate proper science of work, which is doing everything for the pleasure of God, so that we are not doing binding karma.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
There is a comment from Champaji that we had a very good revision of what we have done so far. So she's thanking for that.
Yeah, I think it always helps to build that map. Yeah. Thank you, Champaji. Yes, Prakash ji.
Prakash ji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe
We
Radhe.
can just go back to that slide. You were asking the question, right? Dinji, the last one. Yeah. So basically, no, the question that you asked, right, about leaving everything, going to Himalayas in the old age to acquire spiritual knowledge. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I can ask that question. Sure.
So I
this is
just wanted to tell about my perspective on this. I may be right or wrong. So here, I think the what exactly this means is that we have to really get detached, right? It's not actually physically leaving the world and then going to the spiritual secluded place and doing it. That is not the concept here, right? So the concept is detaching from the mind, not from the body. So even if you go to Himalayas, but if you still your mind still get attached to your family and all these material issues, there's no use. At the same time, if you are still in the world, but still your mind is attached to the God, and then I think it can still bear the fruits of that knowledge. I think it's not about the physical location. Actually, it's about the mind. It's what that matters.
Beautiful. Very true. We are where our mind is. Very true. That is how essentially it is. But yeah, the practice of spirituality is all about training our mind. It may be a helpful aid to begin with, but then retiring to Himalayas and going to forest and just doing that is not the recommended or the path. Basically, Lord Krishna is saying you just stay here in the world and learn that art, maintain that state. That is what sadhana is. When you have a reason and still you are able to condition your mind with the proper knowledge, that is where buddhi yoga comes. That is what true sadhana is. Very true. We are where our mind is. So you could be in the world and yet be connected to God, and that is essentially what Karam Yoga is, right? We might be working in our office computer, laptop, or with people, but if we are connected to God, that is what Karam Yoga is, and that is why it's such a powerful tool that Lord Krishna is talking about. And on the contrary, that Tavrit Suvrit story is there, right? I'll not get into that. You might be in Himalayas or in a temple or doing Bhagavatam part, but if your mind is somewhere else, it's a multiplication with zero. And that is a problem we have had across multiple lifetimes. We have been doing pujas, we have been doing rituals, we have been reciting mantras, but our mind has been in the world, and that is a practice that needs to be corrected. Great. Thank you so much, Prakashji, for sharing that. All right. Yes, we have see few more hands before we get into some of the, I think Jyoti is going to present right today. So let's take a few more questions. 3 more hands are there, and then we get into that.
Yeah, Monica ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe, Monica ji.
Radhe Radhe, Nidhi, Radhe Radhe, Sandhya, Radhe Radhe, everyone. So, Nidhi, what happens to people who, I mean, I know the recommended path is that you stay in the world and do your karma yoga, but what happens to people like how we have so many people in ISKCON, or they are in ashram and they're doing bhakti and everything, prachar, sab kuch karte hain. How is their karma calculated, or how good is that?
So basically it is said that, see, I'll get into that topic of Karam Yoga versus Karam Sannyas. Okay. It is said that Karam Sannyas is not a recommended path, at least for 99% of the people of this world. Okay. And if Karam Sannyas has to be done, it has to be done under the expert guidance of God and Guru. Now, we are nobody to judge if somebody has taken Karam Sannyas, living in an ashram, whether they are ready or not. It's their call, or maybe under the guidance of their guru or not, right? Because the danger of prematurely taking Karam Sannyas is that you are neither here nor there. So you would have given up your worldly duties, but you have not developed sufficient detachment or vairagya from this world. Then you are neither here nor there. So it is better to perfect the required detachment by performing Karam Yoga before you even take that. But that doesn't mean you first do Karam Yoga, then you have to do Karam Sannyasi. No, not necessarily. A Karam Yogi or Karam Sannyasi, internally both are same. Externally, they are different. One is performing worldly duties along with keeping their mind attached to God. The other one has relinquished worldly duties and still their mind is attached to world. So their software is the same. The hardware, external hardware might be different for both. But we don't know. If they have done it under the expert guidance of God and Guru, and it's not a falgu or a temporary or an artificial vairagya, then sure, that is good. I mean, they're progressing. End of the day, it's an internal state of mind. In both cases, they're attached to God, as long as they're performing it perfectly. Yeah. But we'll talk about this topic in more detail. What is the difference between Karam Yoga and Karam Sannyas? And what is the recommended path for most and why?
Sure. Thank you, Nitinji.
Sure.
Radhe Radhe.
No worries. Radhe Radhe. Yes, I see.
Manjeet ji, Radhe Radhe. Please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe, Manishi. Radhe Radhe, Manishi. Yes, yes, you're audible.
Okay, maybe my headphones problem. Let's try this one. Yeah,
We are
so
able to
the
hear you.
okay, perfect. The Karm Sannyas, if done at the wrong time or without proper guidance, like you said, can lead the person to more trouble and even become atheist. There's an example Swamiji gave of I think it was Swami Vivekananda, but a lady came up to him and said, I'm going to go to Vrindavan now. And he said, no, you stay at home because in your mind you're thinking about your son. So if you go to Vrindavan, you're just going to think about your son and not God, Krishna. So stay here and think you can be with your son, but think about God from here. So just like I think Prakash said that you can take your mind because you can be in the Himalayas, but if your mind is in family or wherever, then it doesn't matter. So you can be a yogi from your home too. So it's just
very true.
Yeah. So thank you. Radhe Radhe.
Very true. Very true. Radhe Radhe. Very true point. Yeah, it's the state of your mind, and you could very well be a yogi even staying at home. You could be a Jivan person and still be operating like a householder. That is also a possibility. So it's your state of mind more than anything else. Thank you so much, Manishi. I see Edward G, a new face today. Edward Poikins, welcome to the session. I think you had a question too.
Yeah. Radhe
Yeah, you are
Radhe.
unmuted now, Edward. Radhe, Edward. Did you have a question, Edward? Are you able to hear us? Not sure what's going on. Edward, if you have a question, you can ask us. Otherwise, we can move on to the next hand. Yes, Champaji. Radhe Champaji.
Radhe Radhe, Champaji.
Radhe Radhe. I don't know what I'm going to say now is relevant to the session.
No, please go ahead.
I see a picture here. Question everything why, Nitinji's picture.
Yeah.
Looking at this, I want to express my feelings about this questioning. We spend all our time questioning, from childhood. When we ask too many questions, the mother will say, okay, go to sleep. I think instead of asking question to question, we should start understanding whatever the guru or the mentor or the teacher or this thing, try to understand how much is possible. See, Dhruva did not question his father, why did you make my stepmother push? He did not say, my stepmother is bad and you are sort of, you have been partial. Why did you do that? In the same way, Prahalad did not say, my father is bad. And he was subjected to so much of difficulties. Not once he said, God, are you there? Where are you? Why you are not helping me? You know, the surrender and submission is try to absorb how much you can and what you can. The same way with the Guru. We all want to be his disciple. That is left to our Swamiji's choice, whether he wants us to make his disciple. First, are we accepting him as our Guru completely, you know? That surrender is more important than this questioning, doubts, and things like that. I don't know whether it's relevant. When I saw this picture, I thought I must express it. Thank you. Radhe Radhe.
No, thank you. Beautiful point, Champaji. Very true. Yeah, there was a pun intended in this picture. Not sure how many of you got it, but yeah, very true. I think questioning is an important part of this dialogue. Even Bhagavad Gita unfolded, it was a dialogue between Arjuna and Krishna, but then there has to be a point where they would settle down once you start approaching it with faith, you know, and having a resolute intellect around it. They would settle down. But if we spend our entire life questioning, then that's also kind of a waste, because even in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna is saying, Sanshayatma vinashyati. They say people who are ever doubting will neither have peace in this life nor in life thereafter. So Sanshayatmak buddhi is not good, where you keep on doubting. Questioning is good. It's part of this process, spiritual process. But then once we come across something and a little bit of knowledge has started making sense, and start implementing it as well, and due course of time, questions will settle down. It happens. I mean, I can tell you, personally vouch for it. When I started on this path, I met Swamiji. I used to think I have so many questions. Even one lifetime is not good enough to get all the answers. Okay, it was like too many questions in my head. But believe it or not, within a matter of few months, like everything settled down. Something happened, and I was like, okay, now I cannot say I don't have an answer. Now it's just about what to do on a day-to-day basis. It's an effort on my part. But beyond that, there was no question. It's not that I got perfect knowledge, but whatever questions were needed for me to progress, they got answered. They got resolved in a manner that I was satisfied. And it's just a matter of doing things from that point onwards. Thank you, Champaji, for confirming that. Beautiful point. Yes, Anita ji, you wanted to add something? And then over to Jyoti. I know you wanted to make announcements today. We want to cheer some of our volunteers who have been working really hard behind the scenes. So we wanted to call them out today. Jyoti is going to do that, but after Anita ji, real quick.
Cheering the participants, but yeah, Anita ji, Radhe Radhe.
Yeah, go ahead. Otherwise, we can wait.
Radhe Radhe. Okay. Shall I go?
Yes, yes, please.
Yeah, real quick. Please go ahead.
Okay. Actually, what Manish ji shared, it's actually Ramakrishna Paramahamsa ji said to that lady to go to Vrindavan. Also, I want to share one more story regarding that three monks. They were passing by and they wanted to cross the river, and they saw a lady jumping into the river, and one of them saved the lady, and the other two were said that you touched that lady, and he said that I just saved that lady, and you are still carrying that in your mind. Even though you will be sitting in Himalayas, and if you are thinking still the worldly affairs, it's of no use. And one more story regarding that, another monk who was meditating for 10 years in isolation, and afterwards he came from another foreign country. He wanted to renew his visa, so he went to the visa office to renew his visa. There he made to stand in a queue for long hours, and when his term comes, he just started shouting at them, you made to wait all this, and all those things. He lost his control. He went out his anger. Even though you practice so much of austerity, if you are not able to practice when it is needed, it's of no use. It's actually, you need to put it into practice, whatever you learned. That is in the Nididhyasan, after Shravanam, and after you learn everything and Mananam, you should be able to put it practice. If you are not able to do it, if you are, it means like you are still in work in progress. So these instances make us to learn. It's not only listening, you just have to put it to practice every time you heard listen a nugget.
Yeah, got it.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Radhe.
Very true. Thank you, Anita ji. Very true. So yes, putting it to practice is important, and it's a state of mind that determines whether our mind is in world or otherwise. That's a key
And
concept.
one more thing,
So,
Nitinji, I wanted
Shyamji,
to
yeah.
put the importance of questioning. Like even in worldly affairs also, if you keep on questioning somebody, like they get irritated, and they will find, if you are keep on questioning me for everything, will you ever agree with me for anything? So even in spirituality, it is very much important. Like we have to put a full stop to our questioning and start practicing whatever we learned so far. Thank you.
Yeah, Guru would know your intent behind the question. Are you doing it skeptically, or you genuinely want to understand? If you genuinely want to understand, they will not get upset. I've seen Swamiji explain basic questions also, because somebody might be new to this path or they are not getting that concept. But if somebody asking questions and not doing anything about it, that's a different matter. Okay, now let's quickly do the announcements. I know Jyoti, you've been waiting. Thank you for being patient. I know we ran a little over, and Shyamji, after that, we'll hear you out as well. So Jyoti, over to you now. And please fill out the feedback tracker, especially if you want to, participate in the second year celebration that we're going to have over this week. And if you want to share some experience or anything around that part, take out time for that. And over to you, Jyoti.
Radhe, Radhe, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Radhe, Radhe, everyone. So today we are going to appreciate all our participants. First of all, I would like to thank to be here, to be active, to discuss. It was really engaging sessions. So first we would like to thank for the citation. It's Dinesh ji, Shyam ji, Sandhya ji, Rahul ji, Aparna ji, Ramesh ji, Ashutosh ji, Sam ji, Riya ji, Sri Ramya ji, Akshata ji, Sumesh ji, Anita ji, Sam ji from Chicago, Surya Prakash Rao ji, Pragi ji, and Payal ji for their amazing recitation. And also I would like to, and our team would like to thank all the participants for their active engagement. So for this, we would like to thank Shri Ramya ji, Manish ji, Sumesh ji, Urvi ji, Lakshmi ji, Sandhya ji, Prakash ji, Shurinder ji, Swati ji, Vinisha ji, Gunjan ji, Sam ji from Chicago, Monika ji, Himangini ji, Prakash ji, Rahul ji, Sai Ram ji, and Snehal ji. And we would also like to thank the participants who have kept their video on during sessions. That is Dinesh ji, Shafali ji, Arun ji, Rajiv ji, Himangini ji, Prakash ji, Urvi ji, Lakshmi ji, Surinder ji, Amrutavani ji, Rajesh Rao ji, Nilesh ji, Sam ji, Rahul ji, Sandhya ji, Shyam ji, Sam ji from Chicago, Surya Prakash Rao ji, and Ankur ji. Cheers to you all.
I'm very disappointed. My name is not here this time around, Jyoti.
Oh,
so I'm just kidding.
You are always there. Without you, the session is not going to happen.
No worries. No worries. Thank you for keeping a tab on that and calling out.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
But that's good to see so many faces. Always
Yeah,
helps.
yeah,
Like I
that's
said,
really amazing.
so thank you everyone who was able to turn your videos on. So that
And in
really
case
helps a
if
lot.
we forgot any names, please forgive us.
No worries. And the more videos are on, the better the quality of my jokes would be. Okay, that much I can promise you. So up to you. Okay. Yes, go ahead. What else? Is that all, Jyoti?
Yeah, Nitinji.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Shyamji, you wanted to add something? I know we have a hard stop again today. I have a hard stop today, so but we'll continue. Yeah, please go ahead.
एक सवाल था from Mr. Audibus here again. He says our family members say this only. If we want to do so much Radhe Radhe, then why bother with doing worldly activities? Why do any work? Why take care of family? Just go to Himalayas or become a sadh right away and renounce everything. Concept of Karma Yoga is not understood. When we have been in worldly activities for infinite lifetimes, we cannot just go to Himalayas and develop Viragya in 1 second and focus only on God. We can do Karma Sannyas only when we have become able to single-mindedly focus on God. इनको शायद समझ नहीं आया कि कर्म संन्यास एक ही बारी में how can we renounce God, renounce world activities and be with the God. Since we have been in this infinite lifetimes over and over again and doing all material activities, how is it possible for a person like us to just simply leave all these material things and become godlike?
Nobody's saying that. God is strongly advocating against it. Lord Krishna, if you look at it, he's saying Karam Yoga is the way to go. Okay, he's not recommending Karam Sannyas at all. Okay, Karam Sannyas is something you can only do it under the expert guidance of God and Guru. That too, that can happen probably if you have done enough lifetimes of detachment. You have accrued that you are ready for Karam Sannyas. Like Swamiji, you think he would have any second thoughts about not giving up all on the job or all the material allurements at all? He was ready for it, maybe because of his past karmas, maybe because of the past merit that he had accrued or detachment he had accrued. So those people are very far and few in between. For 99% of the people, recommended path is Karam Yoga. It's just like you cannot get into a doctorate, without having gone through the earlier classes. Karam Yoga itself will help you enable the required dispassion, detachment, Vairagya that is needed. And then, if God and Guru desire, you could take a Karam Sannyas in one of your lifetime. If they don't desire, through Karam Yoga itself, you can perfect your devotion. It's not that first you do Karam Yoga, then you have to do Karam Sannyas and then only God. No, not necessarily. Internally, Karam Yoga and Karam Sannyas hardware and the internal software is both exactly the same for both. There's absolutely no difference. Prahlad, Janak, Dhruv, Ambarish, they were all kings. Were they Karam Sannyasis? No. Were they Karam Yogis? Yes. So Karam Sannyas is not a recommended path, and Karam Sannyas can happen, but for very few people under the, like I always say, expert guidance of God and Guru, who have probably developed the required detachment, Vairagya from this world. Vairagya doesn't mean that this world is miserable. Vairagya means this world there is neither happiness nor misery in this world. So those people are eligible for that. For us, if we do that, we will be neither here nor there. In fact, we will go to hellish abodes, because on one hand, we were not ready. We had not developed the required detachment from this world. And on the other hand, we relinquished our duties also. That will take us to sinful deeds. I hope that makes sense. So Karam Sannyas is not the recommended path at all. And at the same time, sorry?
So the key word here is Karam Yoga.
Karam Yoga. KY is the key word here, okay?
Thank you so much.
So, very true. That is why we have spent so much time on Karam Yoga, right? We said that if it increases our odds of perfecting our devotion by 3 times, because 8 hours maximum time we spend in doing work only, right? And if we can start doing it with the consciousness that we are doing it for the pleasure of God, without thinking about the results, getting attached to the outcomes, then we are doing ourselves a huge favor. Make sense? Okay, good discussion today. Sam G, yes, please. Last one for the day. Unfortunately, we can't have the devotional segment today. We'll resume those after our second year celebration, but please put in your name. And I would love to hear from you how your journey has been. We'll make it an interactive segment, and probably I'll pick up a couple of shlokas, my favorite ones from Bhagavad Gita, just to get the tone going, and then we'll go through bhajans, experiences, make it a little bit of an interactive, reflecting upon this journey. I may have a few words to say, and I would love to hear from each one of you. Please put in your feedback tracker if you want to share something. Yes, Samji.
Radhe Radhe Nitinji. Nitinji, devotion is supposed to make our heart so soft, right? That
for God, but hard as a thunderbolt for the world, both.
So that means we should not be sensitive to others' feelings, emotions.
Of course not. Not sensitivity. It's like we
We should be
basically
hard-hearted people.
not hard. Basically, it does not impact you. Okay, you still be compassionate, helpful to people, but you don't keep on shedding tears for the world, like we do. See, the problem with soft heart is that it sheds tears for the God, but then it sheds tears for the world also. And the problem with thunderbolt hard heart is it doesn't feel anything for the world, and at the same time it doesn't feel anything for the God as well. So we have to handle both of them together. Soft for God, and hard for the world, for the worldly matters. Okay, and that is how it needs to be. That is what Maharajji says.
Okay.
See, worldly emotions, if you keep on crying, then there's no end to it. That's what we have been doing lifetime after lifetime. So amount of tears you have shed for this world, even if you shed 0.01% of it for God, you will realize God multiple times. That's what Maharajji said. So just very strong statement.
Yeah, that means to family members
So for
also should like.
I mean, don't give up your family members. You still help them, but don't let it impact you too much, right? You look at it with the perspective that they have their own journey, they have their own struggles, and at the same time, there's only so much you can do for them. You help them as best as you can. Be responsible. But when you start dwelling too much upon it and making it your sole agenda and getting stressed out, anxious, insecure, that is where the problem starts.
Okay.
Okay, good. Are we done with the discussion today? Then
Yes. Sounds like that.
anybody wanted to sing today that we could not accommodate today? The devotional segment, maybe one chanting we could take if somebody is truly interested. Okay, nobody's today. All right, that's fine. Okay, I look forward to seeing you. No, not me today. Tomorrow, I thought there was a special SMX session, but since I didn't get a confirmation, tomorrow's session is very much on. If something changes, I'll let you know. But then if everything goes as per plan, Wednesday or Thursday, we'll do our second year thing, and it will be an interactive segment. We'll probably pick up one shloka, not go too deep into it, but just talk a little bit about it because it's Bhagavad Gita session, and then talk about our journey, how these 2 years have been, and a few people have signed up for their bhajan part as well. I'll publish their names. You've already put in your names. I know that in attendance tracker you have given. So we'll make it a engaging, interactive segment. I look forward to seeing you all in that session. If you have any questions, please put it in the feedback tracker. And thank you again for your enthusiastic participation. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Yes,
Radhe Radhe.
thank you all of you. Yeah, a very happy new year to each and every one of you once again. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe and happy